Hey guys, welcome to Brown Girl Rising. Today I am so excited. I have got Nicole Walters, author of upcoming memoir Nothing is Missing, which is out on the 10th of October. And I have been lucky enough to have a preview of the book, and I'm already nose deep into it. I'm super excited about having you on this Brown Girl Rising podcast, Nicole. You are incredible. You quit your six-figure salary in front of over 10,000 people. Like, I watched the video years ago or like a year ago, but I didn't know it was you, right?
Yes.
And you've been on TV, you're a top TV personality, you're a podcast host, you're a motivational speaker, an entrepreneur of a multi-million-dollar business, which you built in just over a year. And actually, your biggest job and most important job is that you are a mother.
Yes, I'm a mom and it's hard.
So Nicole, look, as I said just before we press record, you are the first Black woman I have got on this podcast, and I couldn't be happier that it's you. You have this infectious personality. So how are you today?
I'm well. Thank you so much. What a privilege. What an honor. And I mean, it could have been Oprah and you picked me. So thank you.
It could have been Oprah, guys. Yeah, and I picked
It could have been. Look, what an honor. Thank you so much. I just love to say, I just love to feel like, there every opportunity I could have had theoretically could have been hers. So what a privilege that is to me.
I love the way you think. So listen, Nicole, the first question I ask all my guests is, what does it mean to you to be unlimited? So
unlimited means that I'm able to walk into rooms that typically no one in the room looks like me, and I'm able to pursue things as they occur to me, based on needs that I see that need to be met, and not feel limited in what I'm able to do, how I'm able to help, and how far I can go. And that is a lot as a Black woman in America, to say and to feel. And I aim to prove it to be true every single day.
Yeah, and you know what? I can say that's absolutely true, because the first thing I said to Nicole was, "You're the first Black woman I've got on my show." She's like, "If you want more, let me know." So
Let
yeah,
me know. Absolutely.
oh,
If I can
incredible.
open a door, I know more who would love the opportunity. And I think that you're already bringing such diverse, incredible conversations to the table. And Black women are always interested in being part of it.
So can you tell us a little bit? Obviously, your book's out in what is it? What, 10 days or
7 days.
so?
It's seven,
Seven.
7 days.
Now, I have been given a preview of it, but can you, for our listeners, just give us a little insight as to what Nothing is Missing is about?
Sure, absolutely. So just to be transparent, I was going to write a business book. That
Oh,
was where I was going to start because I built this multi-million dollar business and sure, what are the steps? And that's a surefire sell. But the truth is, in the past 3 years, post pandemic and going through a divorce and, putting one of my daughters into recovery for substance abuse, as well as, watching my middle daughter recover from stage 4 cancer, I can tell you that it felt like writing a business book would be short sighted because so many of us are in a place where we're seeking fresh starts and starting over and recalibrating who we are and how we show up. And I felt like this is the book that's required to do the business things. How do I get through the tough stuff? How do I still come back? Even after life is sort of giving me a kick, and
yeah.
I wanted to be honest about that. I wanted to give full color, to the entrepreneurial journey instead of just the black and white of the steps.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So you're looking at kind of your bounce back factor from all
Yes.
these challenges with your daughters and your own life, that, and you're kind of trying to show people that actually you can still become incredibly
Absolutely.
sufficient or incredibly lucky or whatever it is in your own life. So listen, there was this one thing I read. I read that 5 years ago you were offered a book deal
Uh-huh.
at
Yes,
like
that's a good, this is a
10K.
good, no one ever asked me about this. This is good. Yes.
At like what, 10,000 US dollars a book deal.
Mhm.
But you said no. What was it in you that made you say no? Because actually that's a fair bit of money for somebody who's fresh, who's left her job, business starting
Oh,
out, and
yes.
then now you've 10x that. So how did you know you'd get your worth?
Yes. So, couple things. First, that was also a lot of money for like 10, 12 years ago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like $10,000 now is like a tank of gas. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like one, Frappuccino at Starbucks. It doesn't
Yeah.
go as far. But back then, especially after quitting my job, and I think I was only a few months out, that was this could really help alter and secure the course of my business, So you're right. It felt crazy to say no to that.
Yeah.
And I know you said 10x it. I've 100x it with this book deal, which,
Whoa.
it says a lot, in 10 years, you know what
Yes.
I mean? Because what happened was when I first started, and this is sort of, I think, the messaging of it all is there's the paralysis from perfection, right? Where we're waiting till it's just right before we launch. We're waiting until it's just right before we can ask for the opportunity or say yes to the mentorship. We don't want to get caught up in that. But then there's the knowingness that you're meant something more and
Yes.
that maybe it's not the right time or that this place isn't the right home, for my story. And it was all of those things. I will never
Mm.
forget going to meet this publisher, in their city and being so excited about it, like
Yeah.
this could be the thing. And walking in, and when I walked in, they had all their books displayed and they brought me into the room to talk about the book they envisioned for me and just being completely transparent. A lot of the authors on their label, and under there are not ones that align with me value wise.
Right.
They are
Yeah.
not authors that I felt I could identify with. They weren't authors that um I would want my face next to, just being completely
Mm.
transparent. And I knew that if I wanted to lend my story there, furthermore by people who felt it was only worth this amount when I knew what my story was worth, I I just had to walk away. And I can't tell you how many times, I mean, I do in the book, that I've walked away from opportunities to sell, I've had massive pitches for my business to buy my
Yeah.
business out. I've had opportunities for book deals and each time I've said no. Are you willing to learn and ask and grow to do this your way, the right way? Or
Mm.
do you want to, sell or buy where you know that it's short sighted? And
Yeah.
in a world where I think the exit is valued heavily, everyone's like, I exited for 200 million or, whatever. There's something to being said to be bold enough to hold on to your own story and see it come to fruition within your own hands.
Yeah. I love that. So it's like, don't sell yourself short and know that
No.
when one door closes, actually a ton more will open for you, right? And that's
Or you can
absolutely
build
true.
a door. You know what
Build a
I mean?
freaking
You can
door.
build a freaking door. I think that, especially as brown women, we're often told that we have to take what is given to us and be
Yes.
happy for it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, you're the only one who's ever done this, or you're the first person to go here. And it's like, that's good and great. But if you only knew what it took for me to even get here, you would realize this wasn't handed to me to begin with.
Mm.
I had to create this.
Mm.
And not just me, but my ancestors, my parents, there are decisions that have been made long before I even existed to get
Yeah.
me to where I am. And everything I receive now must honor and respect those decisions. So when I'm being paid 10,000, it's not just 10,000 for me. It's I need to be paid accordingly for the sacrifices of my mother, for the sacrifices of my
Wow.
grandmother. And so, and
Yes.
to set a tone for the other women who will come after me, like my daughters.
Yeah.
So you better believe that no one's going to accept anything less than what I've been offered up front.
I
So
love
that's
that.
why that matters to me so
Yeah.
much.
So you brought up two things there, which takes me to
Yeah.
two kind of questions I want to ask you. First one, you mentioned about kind of as a Black woman, you already have these like barriers around you. And you said something in your book that your dad said to you, you're Black, you're poor, you're a woman. So you've already got three
Three
strikes
strikes.
against you, right? So how did that drive you? Because that would have literally been a fire up my ass.
So, I mean, it's one of those things that I think a lot of us who are Black and brown can relate to,
Yeah.
that being raised and told, like, look, whether it's that or you're an immigrant or you have an accent or we live in this neighborhood or, whatever, that there are limitations that we're told we have, that we are expected to carry. Now, it's one thing to tell your child, hey, there are going to be barriers, there are going to be things you'll
Mm.
confront. It's another to make them wear these things as if they're weights that will prevent them from moving forward. And that
Wow.
context is very, very important. And one of the things that I aim to do in this book, is as a mother of three Black girls of my own, is to make sure that they understand that where they start does not dictate their destiny. And the
Yes.
fact that you have to carry things simply means that we're going to get there a little stronger when we finally get to put down those weights, and I do not want them to ever feel limited by what society has told us is a
Mm.
limitation because part of the disempowerment of society preventing the forward movement of brown and black people is by telling us that our very strengths are our limitations, you
Yeah.
know. And so when my father would say that to me, you know, it was something that, and I say this very clearly in the book, you know, I heard him say, but I didn't quite understand because none of those things sounded or felt like limitations. They felt like
Right.
they're just parts of who I am, and I'm going to use them and leverage them for the win.
Wow, that's really deep and really powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
So actually your mum sounds like,
Yes.
let's go to from one parent to another.
Yes, yes,
Sounds like a bit of a badass, and she sounds
yes.
incredible, if I do say so myself. You know, she's there going back and forth to Ghana with, you know, and like running businesses in
Running
market
businesses.
stalls and things like that. So would you say that your mum was a bit of an inspiration to how you are today?
Yes, I mean, what's interesting is you take a little bit from both parents, right? So my father
Mm-hmm.
had unwavering work ethic to the point where he ran himself into the ground, you know, and he would have anxiety and stress. And, you know, it's interesting because I inadvertently absorbed his work ethic. You know, I understand what it's like to show up and work, you know, 12, 15-hour days and keep going, you know,
Yeah.
and I got that from him for sure. But when it comes to always having a side hustle, always pursuing something extra, I think any immigrant child can understand this. Our parents had 5 or 6 jobs. And even if they were doctors or lawyers and had a primary, your parents also were amazing cooks, which means that if we had to just sell meals on the street, we could do that. You know,
Yes.
your parents knew how to mend clothing. There was a certain sort of bucket of skills that we were expected to have in
Mm-hmm.
life. So, you know, I joke all the time. Yes, I built a multi-million-dollar business. Yes, I have book deals and TV shows, but make no mistake, if I just needed to braid hair and mend clothing and grow my own vegetables, I could do that too. Drop me on a farm and I will still sustain. And
Yes.
that I got from my mother, you know, that drive towards making sure that you could be self-sufficient, and recognizing that nothing is missing in your task and ability skill set is
Mm.
strictly a gift from having my African mother.
Yeah.
100%.
I know that because I remember as I was growing up, I grew up in a very whitewashed town
Mm-hmm.
in the UK,
Sure.
and my mother used to make samosas for the local bakery,
That's right. That's right.
right?
And you understand.
And
And
they
it's
used
like,
to lap it up as well.
oh yes, they lap it up because they're like, these are the
Two
best things
pound
we've ever had.
fifty for a samosa. Oh my god.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, you're like, you know, I talk about this in the book, sort of illustrating some of the lessons that we see here on the US stock market. She understood margins.
Mm-hmm.
How can I make money from this simple thing? She understood overhead. How much does it cost for me to buy these things in order to turn into how many samosas that I need to
Yeah.
charge for this amount? She understood having a diversified income and streams into your home.
Yeah.
I make samosas on the side, but this isn't our primary bread and butter. You know, I mean, it's amazing because, you know, as immigrants, as, you know, new entrepreneurs, even, you know, a lot of times we think we lack, but we don't
Mm.
recognize that some of the skill sets, the ones that are taught in Harvard Business School, are innate in us and we've been raised with them.
Yeah.
And it's leaning into that that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is a beautiful thing. So you said, you know, you're an immigrant, so you're first generation born in the US, right? Immigrant,
Yes.
your parents are from Ghana. How did you manage to navigate the two cultures growing up? Because I know
Listen,
America.
girl, I'm still navigating them. I feel like anyone who is listening, who knows, my mom, bless her heart, I talked to her yesterday and she's like, oh, yes, you know, I love that you included me in your book. It's so nice. Thank you for all of this. You know, it's so wonderful. But also, you have this book. When are you going to have more children? Because, you know, I have 3 kids. I
Yes.
have 3 kids and I am almost 40. And she's like, you can still carry and you can have at least 2 more. You have no boys. And the thing is, this is the immigrant way, right? It's
Yeah.
the juxtaposition of, I love that you're doing all these fun little ventures, but there's still time to go to medical school. You know, like it's this weird,
I
you
love
know,
that you're a millionaire, but
I
come on,
love it. But
just be a
also,
dentist.
you know, you can be a millionaire doctor, you know, like it's like both, you know, and it's beautiful because, you know, they dream big for you.
Yeah.
They had these aspirations for you, but you also have to really work hard to balance what that means for yourself. I can't tell you how many super successful entrepreneurial podcasting TV show personalities, boutique owners that I know that are Black and brown that are also like, yeah, but I also have my master's in engineering.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? Why? You know what I mean? Why? You know, because you need a backup plan, you know? And when I tell you, when I talk about my story and the fact that I chose to go head in, you know, all into corporate America and all into entrepreneurship, you know, it scared my parents. And it scared them because they're like, look, you are our 401k plan. We put everything in you, you know, and for you to go rogue, one, it better work, you know. So I felt that in my spirit, but also they were an external personification of the fears and anxieties I had myself. So I was in a place where I think a lot of people receive support and motivation from their parents. Instead, I was in a place where I had to really say, I have to limit their access and their voices in my mind because I'm already scared and I don't need the external, you know, validation of that fear. You know, in this season I really have to lean into myself.
Yeah, I feel that because I'm the same, right? Like I'm not doing your typical Indian girl thing at all, you know, building my own business, podcast, all that kind of stuff. And sometimes you have to kind of go, you know, I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing because I need to like just protect it because I know you're going to say, but how much money are you making? You know, and are you saving? And like, what are you investing in? All that kind of stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy. So look, as a kid, I feel like you and I were very similar. I think we're similar ages. You said you're 40, right? So you were told that you were too much, too exuberant, too loud, right? So how does it feel now to be able to be your truest self and literally make millions from it?
When I tell you, it is rewarding, but it doesn't mean that the messaging's not still in your head. You know, that's what therapy is for, right? You know, and I have to tell you, you know, one of the things that I talk about in my book, Nothing is Missing, and as a mom raising my own girls, is that the very thing that society often wants to quiet within us is usually the thing that will make us most profitable. So we have to be very careful in recognizing that the dismantling of systems that have historically kept us down is in us stepping into our gifts, you know. So the idea that I'm constantly being told that you're expected to work hard and speak up and show up, and you would have had the raise if you said something, you would have had the opportunity if you'd said something, Nicole, but also being told be less, be quieter, be demure, you know, understand that that is very much in alignment with keeping me from where I need to go. So, you know, the byline of my book is a memoir of living boldly, because at every point, every story I share in my book, from quitting my corporate job that made 6 figures live online in front of 10,000 people, to, you know, adopting 3 girls from the side of the street, to getting a divorce, which, you know, culturally, it's like, what are you doing? You know, I made bold decisions that have literally altered the course of my life for the better. And when I tell you, the minute you start bucking the trend and leaning into what you know is right within you, because that intuition means something, is when you really will find yourself.
But what happens when you're scared? So say you've got, you know, all these big dreams, goals, visions, but you're like, well, I'm not earning enough money right now. So how am I going to pay my next mortgage? What happens if you're scared? What do you do then?
My book comes out in 7 days. I'm terrified. You know what I mean? I'm authentically and genuinely terrified, you know, because I've invested a lot of time, money, energy. And when I talk about my heart, spirit, and soul, can you imagine putting out your whole story and then it being like, you know, like it's tough, you know? And I am scared. I'm scared right now. You know, I've taken out stock in deodorant, the way that I sweat profusely as I do interviews and conversations. But what I have learned is, just like our ancestors before us, just like our parents before us, there is nothing that comes to you without a healthy dose of fear. That is literally a major component in the process. And I've learned that I have to literally do it scared and know that the truth is, whatever's on the other side, I can handle that too. And that part, even saying it now, I can feel it in my spirit of trying to remind myself so that I believe it. You know, no matter what happens on the other side of sharing vulnerably in this book, I can handle that because I am one step closer to the truth. So you build this business and you lean in, and maybe it doesn't make as much money as you thought. Maybe it doesn't, whatever, you know, but you're one step closer to the truth of, I tried this thing and this is what I liked in it. And this is what worked and what didn't. And eventually you will land at the thing that makes you money. You will land at the thing that is your calling, you know, but you do have to show up and answer it.
Yeah, absolutely. Eventually you do get to your purpose. Like I've had multiple businesses before and I've had to like either sell them or it's not worked or I've moved on, and you know, you're right. but I just kept going. Do you think faith is really important? Because I know you are big on your faith. Do you think that is really important?
Absolutely. I think that it's one of the biggest things that people don't talk about. We talk so much about having the right tools, the right mentor, building the right product, knowing your
Yeah.
numbers, and we talk about belief systems, sort of generally believing in yourself or generally, having the right affirmations, and all those things are good and great. But I got to tell you, there comes a point where you come to your knees and you say to yourself, I've done all the things. I need to believe that there is something else, someone else, some other force that is putting these ideas into my head, that I call them God zaps, putting these things into my head that because there's a reason and they're going to prevail, and all the things I have are going to be pushed towards good. And I do not know what I would do if I didn't have my Christian faith. That is such a stand in the gapper for me.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful for it.
Absolutely. I would say the same actually, but listen, I have a question to ask you, which might be a bit of an odd one. But
Yeah.
do you think your life had been on a completely different trajectory if you didn't meet that person in the cab who said that you need to go to an elite school?
Wow. Oh my goodness. No one's ever asked me that before. So yes, yes. I can one thing I can tell you, and I do this often. I think often about the places where if one thing had happened differently, who knows where I would be? And there is the element of, certain things are ordained, certain things like this is where I was going to be no matter what. There
Yes.
is that piece. But I can tell you, I don't question that moment was going to happen no matter what, one way or another. I was going to end up there. But yes, I was riding around with my dad in the passenger seat because we couldn't afford after school childcare, and that's very normal. And he would pick up passengers. Thankfully, I was in Washington, D.C. So most of his passengers were someone who was pretty well connected, or, someone who was coming to the area. And sure enough, someone got into his cab and they said, I was chatting like I did, like an overly chatty kid, and they were like, your daughter's very smart. Where does she go to school? And, my father mentioned, because I was very young, that he was going to be enrolling me in the local public school because that was what was near where we lived. And this gentleman said, no, you don't know about private school systems, but she could get into a top private school. This girl has an aptitude about her. If you want, contact me here and I'll tell you what you need to know, in order to get this done. And it's right. It changed the trajectory of my life because, and I say this just because I think that one, public school, there's nothing wrong with public school whatsoever. And it's important for me to say that, to also respect and honor the teachers that work so hard to get to their kids there. I'm an advocate and fighter for teachers, but I also know that the difference between public school and private school are simply resources and network. And, our teachers in public school systems are so understaffed, underappreciated, and underpaid, and they lack the resources to help these children the way they deserved. And that was the shift in my life. I was immediately taught and the beneficiary of resources. And I continue to be the beneficiary of network. There's no one who's graduated from my private school system that, a lot of them are Forbes 30 under 30. A lot of them are on the stock market. Several of them are New York Times bestsellers, and all of that started with that initial access to resources, tools, and again, being taught to ask boldly, and I share that in my book. I'm sharing the things that you're taught in private school, in this book.
Yeah. Did you feel like you had to face any cultural barriers going to a private school as a Black woman?
When I tell you, I started off bringing African food and I said, no, Mom, if you don't make me a sandwich, I am not going to be in here in the classroom it's like the person who brings tuna for lunch. You're like, this coworker drives me crazy. Like, what are you doing? And of course, to me, that was all I knew. I didn't even know when I would go over to friends' houses, what do Americans even eat? Burgers? Like, what do they eat? Because I grew up African. So it's like a rice, a stew, some sort of sauce, and a starch. And so
Hello.
yeah, right. No, you get it, so it was like just experiencing that alone. I was like, oh, this is different, but then also going to parties and play dates, and we didn't have play dates. So, I'm not sleepovers. What? My mom's not doing those. Why am you going to someone's house to sleep? We have bed here, well, what do you need to go over there and do? And find a book and do some math, like literally it was like, what are you doing?
Love it.
So the juxtaposition of growing up and trying to embrace an American lifestyle, but also recognizing and acknowledging that I was raised by Africans as an African, was really tough, but I'm thankful for it now because there's nothing like knowing where you come from to
Hmm.
to dictate how you decide and your value system. And it's a real gift, it's a real privilege.
Yeah. And then you mentioned something along the lines of that the American dream isn't just about the family, the 2.4 kids, the white picket fence.
Yes.
Actually, it's about choices. Can you expand on
Yes.
that, please?
Yes, yes. So, I think one of the things I grew up with, which I think this languaging is evolving, and I'm excited to be part of that conversation. So many of us are raised thinking that the American dream is stuff. It's,
Yes.
oh, well, if you grew up in that country, you didn't have a white picket fence, a house, and, 2.5 kids and a dog. Well, the world's come a long way. My dad actually did grow up in a Discovery Channel village with, dirt floors and all of that. But my mother, she grew up in an apartment building. She had a lovely flat, she had great schooling and
In
education.
Ghana.
In Ghana, absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, Ghana
yeah.
is extremely westernized, and
Yes.
so it's one of those things where I think that there is this misconception, that
Hmm.
every immigrant who comes here is looking to pursue a better life. And that better life means a home that looks a certain way, stuff that looks a certain way. When in reality, a lot of immigrants who are coming here may be leaving being a doctor in their home country, and they're coming here just for more choices. And that is something every American can learn from. If you stop looking at money as being the ticket to things, and you start looking as money as being the key to more doors, more choices, more opportunities, so you don't have to choose between private school or fixing your new roof, or fixing your roof on your house. That is really the mindset that will actually change your relationship with money, your work ethic, and how you show up to opportunities. And that changed my life hugely.
How do you get into a mindset of wealth being something that is available to you for choices rather than stuff?
Sure. I mean, one of the things was growing up around it, and so
Mm.
when I say I'm so grateful for my background, because I was absolutely poor. I was going home to sleep on a couch, until I was 12, and waiting until payday to restock the fridge. But then I would go to school and sit next to kids whose meals were made by butlers, and they were picked up literally in limousines,
Can we talk about Jenkins?
Oh, I mean, can we talk about Jenkins? I went home and I played rich. I had a butler, who would fetch me things, and we would get into conversations when he would make mistakes where I would show him grace and I would let him get back to his work. You know what I mean? Like this is how I played when I was younger,
Love it.
and it was because I experienced it, but
Yeah.
one of the beauties was I didn't grow up in the wealth of a city like Los Angeles or Miami, where it is a very different type of wealth. I grew up in a city where wealth was juxtaposed with academia,
Hmm.
power, and it was diverse because it was Washington D.C.
Yeah.
So for me, wealth wasn't about the have and the have-nots exactly. It was about figuring out what is the gap, because I am the same as these people. I'm in the same schools. I'm at the same events. I get better grades than some of these kids. So
Mm.
it's not about them having certain things. So I just need to figure out what I need to do to get those things, but they're available to me as well. So that from an early age, wealth didn't feel necessarily inaccessible to me. I just
Mm.
needed to figure out what is the process to get there. And that has lent itself to me really having the ability to share that process with other people, because I don't have the same barriers in my mind around accessibility to money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible, because I know that, like, say, for example, someone wins the lottery, they automatically become wealthy, and then in a
Mm-hmm.
year and a half, they've lost it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
that's because they gave no value to that money. But it sounds like, you had given value to that idea of being rich, so that when you got there, like,
Right.
you weren't ever going to lose it, because actually it was something that you chose to make and chose to do.
Absolutely. Well, and also, again, having to grow up poor, and I was poor for a very long time,
Mm.
I have a way of living where I still like nice things. I love nice travel. I love fancy stuff. Like all those things are nice, right? But I also know how to shop at Target, and I don't have any weird feelings about that. I also know how to thrift, and I don't have any weird feelings about that. I know how to clean my own toilets and cook my own meals, and that doesn't mean anything about who I am or where I fit in. And I don't,
No.
oftentimes people who experience how I live are surprised that I even, my fiance, when we first met, he was like, I was wearing something that he thought looked really nice. And he was like, "Oh, that's cute. Where'd you get that?" And I was like, "Target." He was like, "You shop at Target?" And this was very early on, just because he didn't grow up, wealthy. And so
Yeah.
he's just, people really think that just because you have money, you drastically change your lifestyle. But the reality is, that's a very social media modern day thing, the
It is.
flex of the money. But growing up, that's just not what I grew up with.
Yeah.
The richest people don't wear labels.
Yeah.
They have high quality experiences.
They really do. They really do.
Mhm.
Do you know what? I had a question in my head and it's completely gone. So I'm going to ask you something else. So,
Sure.
how does someone find their self-worth when things seem to be stacked against them?
So this is an ongoing journey, and it's something that it took a lot of therapy for me to discover. But I have a whole chapter in my book saying called "You Wake Up Worthy," and the reason why I have that chapter is because your worth isn't dictated by how you show up.
Yeah.
And I think that's very difficult because, even in immigrant culture, there is that sort of, idolizing of the child who's the doctor with the kids in the home who takes care of the family. And this is my good child. And let's all be like this one, and there is, I think, in America, the elevation of people who are highly successful and have done a lot of things. It's why, writing Nothing is Missing. One of the things that's beautiful about it is, I'm a mom, I'm a regular person. People have seen my journey from day one, from $24 in my bank to, building out millions. It's really the elevation of a regular person just like you who's able to get to where they want through hard work, good choices, and asking
Mm.
boldly. And that, I think, is the message around worth, is that you are
Mm.
inherently worthy. You
Yeah.
wake up worthy, and what you do, good or bad, during the day doesn't change it. And it changes your relationship with everyone that you interact with because you recognize that we all have value simply in our being,
Yeah.
not because of what we do.
Yeah. That is beautiful. And yeah, you do need to wake up worthy. I find that sometimes, of a morning, I might wake up feeling really glum, but actually, I know
Mhm.
I'm worth everything and
That's
everything that
and
I
that's
do.
beautiful. That's
Yeah.
that's amazing. I still work on that. Like
Yeah.
I have had to, being transparent. I'm 7 days out from this book hitting shelves everywhere, and there are goals of the milestones of a successful book, New York Times bestseller, getting certain press opportunities, certain reviews, and I've had to every time I hear back an amazing review or whatever, remind myself you wrote a great book for your daughters without that review. It's nice to know that someone else also finds value in it, but the value existed in your story without somebody saying that. Like I've
Mm.
had to really remind myself that, making New York Times bestseller will be a beautiful accomplishment that will allow you to reach more places and help more people and put a brown girl up amongst, the odds of me being the only brown girl up there are pretty high. You know what I
Pretty
mean? Like,
high.
so,
Yeah.
it's
Unless
a
Oprah's
beautiful,
written a book, right?
which, and she always does that, you know what I mean? She always does that, the timing of it all, but, being able to, put myself up on that list, is meaningful for a lot of reasons, but it doesn't mean anything about my worth of that list or who I am. And so I really have been having to do consistent coaching because you want to strive for a lot, but you don't want to lose sight of self in that
Mm.
process.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to go back to you being a mom.
Okay.
So you've adopted three girls, and if
I
I
did.
read correctly, they were after you got divorced. Is that right?
No, no, no. So it's actually an interesting story, and I actually dive into it in the book a little bit more than I have in the past. But
Okay.
I met my girls about 10 years ago when I was driving down the street in Baltimore, Maryland, and their mother was panhandling on the side of the road, begging for food and money. And she had my littlest one with her at the time, who was 3. And I pulled over to offer them some money and also inquire what do they need. And we ended up taking them to go get food, and then I went back to their home and found out they had 2 more girls, and at that point, ages 11 and 14. And so I just remained in their life as a mentor, bringing them food, helping the
Mm-hmm.
girls with school, things of that sort. But within a month, their mother stated that she'd be incarcerated for substance issues. And so I said, well, what's going to happen to the girls? And she said, I don't know. Maybe they'll stay with like my boyfriend. Maybe the state will take them. I don't know. And so I said, well, I'll take them, and I was 28 at the time. And so
Wow.
I said, we'll see what we can do, And so I took these girls into my home and just figured it out every single day, and took them to school, just figured out the process. And when their mother, came out, it was just very clear that, my home was the safest, best place for them at the time. And their mother has so much love for them. She's still in our life, still loves them very much. But, she is best suited to care for herself, and handle the things that are on her plate. And so I was able to step in and help there. And it's been a beautiful journey over the 10 years. We've dealt with a lot, but in just 10 years, I've put 2 kids into college, put 1 into rehab, helped 1 beat stage 4 cancer, potty trained, kindergarten, middle school,
Wow.
you know, in a span of 10 years, so it's been a
That's
very full life.
incredible.
And I did all that while building a business,
Wow.
so I don't say that to hold that up as if I can do it, you can too, as so many people do. I hold it up to say that I did all of this. And when you read the book, imperfectly, with tons of mistakes. I ended up not having a marriage, at the end of it.
Yeah.
I had health issues, and I say this to not just be a cautionary tale, but to say, look, there are specific things that can be done to achieve those goals and not have to encounter some of the things that I did. And I'm excited to share those answers.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I'm halfway through the book. So I did
Yes.
want to finish it before we
Yes.
met, but I am halfway through.
Oh, no, it's short notice. I appreciate you even including it. You get to a point, even in writing your own book, where you get sick of it, where you're just kind of like, oh, I can't read another page. So the fact that anyone reads it at all is so meaningful. I appreciate that.
Bless
Thank you.
you. So how do your girls see you today then?
Oh my goodness. So, I'm going to be honest, part of writing this book is because, I am annoying as a mom, right? Because your kids come to you and, here I am, this motivational speaker, this TV personality, and they know they can't really say much to me without me saying like, yeah, you can handle it, or let's figure this out, or there's an answer, and I can tell that what's beautiful is we have a really great, I mean, all 3 of my daughters, we have an amazing relationship, and I'm so blessed by it. And they trust me, because one of the things I mentioned in the book, towards the end, is that reminding them that I'm never leaving is an ongoing part of our relationship, that
Yeah.
there's nothing they can do, that would ever change their worth in my eyes, and I'm not going anywhere. So that's so important. But also in writing this book, I'm letting them know that, look, like, I want you to know that where you start doesn't dictate where you'll end up,
Yeah.
and I know they've lived with me through a lot of, all the things, because most of my life happened in the past 10 years, that all the milestones. And
Yes.
they look at it as, yes, my mom accomplished this. Yes, mom, you're so high achieving. But in reading this book, because I gave them all 3 a copy, they're like, we didn't know that you started here. We didn't know that this is what you came from. And I can tell that they look at me in a different way. And by extension, look at themselves in a different way. They realize how empowered they are to actually do and be more, because I was able to do it and I still make mistakes, and
Yeah.
I think that message of grace that is interwoven through this book is the most powerful, and what my kids are growing from the most.
I think that's beautiful. So where did the title come from? Nothing is
Yes.
missing.
So nothing is missing. So when I tell you, I went back and forth so many times, even with my publisher, they were like, gosh, that seems so, like, I don't know about that title, and the thing is, it came from the thing that I have to tell myself all the time, whether it is wondering how this book is going to do and how many hands it's going to get into. I have to remind myself, look, it doesn't matter. I have to work hard to get it out there, but nothing's missing, Nicole. You're not missing anything. It's a society that's constantly telling us, as marginalized people, women, brown women, Black women, immigrants, first generation, that single moms, just, anyone who's in a position where we're encountering a card that we may have been dealt that we didn't ask for, we're always told that we're missing something. And because we're missing something, we can't have other things. And, it's important for me that everybody who is pursuing anything that matters to them carries the banner of nothing is missing. Because when you start approaching your problem saying, look, nothing is missing, I have what I need here to make it work, and I will get what I need when as required along the way, you really do approach life differently. You don't get caught up in that fear. You don't get caught up in that I'm stuck. It still shows up, but you start saying to yourself, well, even though I'm stuck, if all I have is what I have in front of me and nothing is missing, where am I going to go with what I have? Not I'm going to stop and freeze, but where am I going to go? Who can I ask? What can I look for? Who do I know now? And that banner has changed my life. It has changed my life.
I am going to take that on. Like, my Instagram is unlimited Urvashi. Underneath tagline, nothing is missing.
Nothing is
How
missing.
beautiful
I'm
is that?
telling you, when you look around and you run into a tough spot and you say to yourself, okay, I'm freaking out. I don't know if I can do it. And then you say, okay, nothing is missing. Nothing is missing. Help me see what I need to see. Nothing is missing. I'm not kidding. The answer really will show. It will show up every single time. It
Mm.
will show up every single time.
I love that. I love that. So, can you give us one tip for our listeners today to help them believe in themselves and their dreams?
So it's so easy for me to say, work hard, show up, charge your worth, all these things. So I want to come from a different angle, take all of those messages too, but I want you to grant yourself some grace. Go easy on yourself in your learning. Go easy on yourself with your mistakes because it's a long haul and shame serves no one. You deserve to get through and feel good about yourself as you do it because you're
Mm.
already taking on big things, whether it's being a mother, building a huge business, serving as a janitor or secretary, all of those things has pride associated with it. And all of those things will encounter mistakes and hardship. So you've got to get good at granting yourself some grace in the journey.
So there you go, guys. That's Nicole says it. Grant yourself some grace. Nicole, I have really loved having you on this podcast. I know you've got to go soon, but before you do go, can you just tell us where we can buy your book, how we can find you on social media, and all the other jazz?
Absolutely. So, if you are listening to this on October 10th, the book is available everywhere. You can go to any major retailer and grab a copy today. And I always want to encourage people to know that, it really does make a difference. You buy a copy and every single book is counted. You are contributing to my dream, my honoring my ancestors, and contributing to my baby girl. So thank you for that. And then you can find me all around the internet at Nicole Walters.
Incredible. I cannot wait to see how this book does. And it will be #1 on the New York
I
book
received
thing.
that. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. I
Oh,
received it.
bless you. Thank you so much for being here with me, Nicole. And guys,
Thank
I
you.
will see you on the next episode.